Yes, sir. Waiting on your remarks, sir. All right. Reverend, how you doing, sir?
Doing well. How about
I'm
yourself?
doing all right, sir. Doing all right. Hey, Miss Honey, how you doing, man? So good seeing you, man. Yes, it's 503, sir. How you doing, sir?
Good afternoon.
Doing well.
Good evening.
Made it here again. It's a good sign.
I'm not trying to down.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard that intelligent men sometimes change their mind.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And I assume I'll figure out what that means later.
Yes, sir. Oh, you know it now.
I do not.
You know what it is, sir. Take a guess.
Do not. But
Take a guess, sir.
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our 5:07, not 5 p.m.
meetings. I'm going to first start out with the public hearing notice, and then we'll move forward into the rest of the agenda. Ms. Salisbury.
Yes, sir. Notice is hereby given that Charleston County Council will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 21st, on an ordinance authorizing the conveyance of approximately 2.68 acres of real property located at 334 Calhoun Street to CHS 334 LLC and/or its assigns.
Okay, do you have any speakers?
Yes, sir.
Bryant?
Mr. Bryant, would you come up and give us your name and your address, sir? And we give you up to 2 minutes. Yes, sir.
Anthony G. Bryant, 2123 Cortland Avenue, Charleston, South Carolina, 29403. And it's regarding having free speech. Under this, DHEC can refer anyone's name to the Attorney General if their speech is a little different than others. This is a conveyance of some serious money in terms of where the money will go to the Housing and Community Development Committee for an assessment in terms of affordable housing. 2-point-some acres of land should be developed by them with the intended purpose of providing affordable housing since we've been neglected. The second position is, does this project really address the policy practices that issued MUSC and not denying people the right to be heard at their meetings? Disparity, harm, and causation, by and large, to poor folk in our community. That's why I'm here tonight, because it seems as if these institutions, these public entities controlled by the state, feel as if they can be exempt from having discussions with the public like you're having. You're having open discussions about this issue. You at the MUSC's meeting, you can't even speak at their meetings in a public forum about any issue. So this conveyance is pretty serious in terms of poor folk, in particular black people, where the city of Charleston is not yet, and they're redistricting yet. They're going to prove and show that they diluted the black vote. Income and race is not a part of zoning, local zoning, until 2030. We find out ain't no black people downtown. So the bottom line is, 10 years from now, we'll feel the effects of this in a very serious way. I won't say negative, but I will say serious. I'm submitting for the record my public comment on a rate increase, Public Service Commission for Dominion Energy, which you're affiliated with. And a request for fuel cost rate increase on, by and large, people with earned income credit at 44% in the state on earned income credit. But they can't even afford to pay their rent, better yet, additional light bills. This is for the record as well. Also, additional documents to the city.
Yeah, go ahead. You can finish up, wrap it up. I'll give you a few minutes to wrap
Thank you,
it up.
brother. But I mean, the bottom line is, why isn't more people here for $19.5 million? We're not a direct lobbyist or grassroots lobbyist. Okay, one council member could do financial behavior control analysis. Another could do with assessment and appraisal, but Henry Darby would deal with a harm to his students. Because their mama can't pay their rent, daddy can't pay their rent, they gotta live in their car. So we're gonna talk about income and race, not even a part of the subject on a local level. Because black folk have been here forever, ain't gonna be gone forever. Thank you for your service and time.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay, anything from council members? Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move in to our county council meeting where we have 3 items on the agenda. So, Ms. Salisbury, would you read all members of council can participate. Would you read the Freedom of Information Act for me, please?
In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of meeting was posted and agendas were distributed to news media and persons requesting notification.
Okay, item number 2 is the third reading of the sale of Charleston Center property, 334 Calhoun Street. Ms. Salisbury.
An ordinance authorizing the conveyance of real property totaling approximately 2.68 acres located at 334 Calhoun Street, parcel ID number 46014000019 to CHS 334 LLC and/or its assigns. Mr. Darby.
Aye.
Mrs. Honeycutt.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Middleton. Aye. Mr. Moody. Aye. Mr. Sass. Aye. Mr. Schwiers.
Aye.
Mr. Werman. Chairman Pryor.
Aye.
The ordinance passes third reading with 9 ayes.
Okay, item 3A is ARPA Micro Business Pandemic Relief Program. Do anybody need to do an update? There's Ms. Durant, anything you need to let us know what they're voting on? Because I think there's been a little tweak.
I'll lay the groundwork and let Mr. Davis give any details, but bottom line, at the Finance Committee meeting, you all asked staff to go back and make some adjustments to the Small Business Pandemic Relief Program, and we have done that, and the details are in the memo that lay out how we...
Not you.
Could you hear me?
We can hear you now.
We'll lay out the details of how the money will be awarded. And that memo is in there. It allows us to comply with the federal regulations
Yes,
and
ma'am.
still get money to the businesses that are in need from the pandemic impact.
Okay, any questions from council members?
In the memo,
Yes, sir, in your packet, in your email.
didn't see.
If you got a question, just ask.
I guess, what, are there any local or county restrictions? Or are we simply talking federal?
They are required to comply with county law, yes. There are no additional county restrictions, if I understand your question correctly.
Why don't you just tell them what the restrictions are so everybody will know and the public can hear it as well, too?
I think the only significant change that we made was to the, was it business license? I'm sorry, I didn't have the memo in front of me. Oh, right. So the forgivable loan, we're just requiring them to do an affidavit. We're just requiring them to do an affidavit that they are that they will remain in compliance for 1 year, after which it won't make a difference. Now, businesses that have been in business for less than 2 years don't apply. I'm sorry, don't qualify for this. So that became a non-issue.
So you'd only, so let's get to the nuts and the shells of it. They'll only need a 2019 business license that they were in business and a copy of their tax return, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then they'd have to sign the form, you know, agreeing to the kind of issues that they'd have to be in compliance for 1 year.
Right, which just means remaining in the county and not selling the business outside of the family.
That's right. But now, let me explain this so people know. If they're renting, that still doesn't prohibit them. If the owner comes in and sells the business, that's no fault of theirs.
Correct.
Okay? So just want people to understand that for those people who are renting, because most of these people in the barber shop or the beauty salons, they lease spaces. And so if a tenant wants to, if an owner wants to sell, then that won't be a problem of theirs because they're still in compliance.
It's a sale of the actual business, not
Right.
the location.
Okay, good.
Yes, Mr. Pryor?
No, I'm not.
All right.
I'm coming to you.
I know you're looking over there, sir, but I guess my next question is, how much are we talking and why limited to $25,000 or not to exceed? What is that
Because
gonna-
this was our first response to get money out quickly to the businesses that needed it. We can, if this council so chooses, we can certainly allocate additional money from ARPA, but this was the quickest response that we could do to get money out to businesses immediately.
So if we had asked for 50,000, that would have slowed the process?
No, sir. 25,000 was the number that we came up with by consulting with SCASED and other local business organizations. That was the number that we started with, and everybody thought that it was appropriate for this purpose, so that's what we stayed with.
Mr. Rand, follow up on that. and give
Please,
them-
Mr. Darby, the regulations change and become more stringent as the dollar amounts go up. And so there are thresholds that change drastically what businesses have to do and what we have to do to comply. So this allows us to get money out to these businesses quickly, and then we can work on a longer-term plan that could include additional funds, but they're more restrictive. So the goal was to get something out quickly and in the hands of the businesses that need it now to continue to operate.
And for the same businesses if needed more, or businesses that did not procure the 25,000?
Right now, as the regulation is written, there is nothing that prohibits a business that receives one grant that they cannot receive additional, but the requirements for that additional money and the higher amount will be more restrictive. So I can't commit 100% they would be eligible, but the regulation does permit it if they meet the next test.
So I guess my question is, again, would $50,000 have slowed down the process as opposed to 25,000?
It would have required us to do more compliance work.
That's true.
And so, yes, it might have slowed down the initial process, but it certainly would have drug out the process for us actually getting checks out and being able to monitor the program.
Okay, well, I'm not a businessman. I don't know what it is to have a business, but I'm thinking for here, I mean, $25,000. I don't know whether that's even worth to file the application. I don't know, but I was thinking $50,000. So that's just me. That's just me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let me explain. You only got $2.5 million.
But that's it.
That's all
Okay,
for this
all
first
right.
round. So that's why they say up to 25,000. If you have 100 people sign up, it's 25,000. You have 150, then the number has to come down. So so if you have less than 100 people sign, the number may go up. But that's why they're saying up to 25,000.
Understood, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Anybody else? No. Okay, is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, ayes have it. Okay, we move to 995 Morrison. Mr. Werman, you had asked to put this back for some consideration, so I'm gonna move to you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, and maybe just as a brief history, what is actually on the table today would have been the previous, I guess, proposal out of Finance Committee to put a deed restriction. I'm going to move that we amend the recommendation from the Finance Committee to, instead of doing a deed restriction, to instead direct staff to put out an RFP for an appropriate professional, I'll just say, to evaluate a framework and assist in drafting an RFP to develop 995 Morrison around said framework or some reasonably approximate alternative of the framework. The framework being as follows. At least 1/3 of residential units would be affordable at no more than 60% of area median income. 1/3 would be affordable at no more than 100% of area median income, and no more than 1/3 would be priced at market rate. The transaction would be done as a ground lease from the county, and a portion of the ground floor would be available for commercial use.
Second for discussion.
Second by Ms. Honeycutt, moved by Mr. Werman. Any other discussion?
Well, I could.
All right, guys, let's move this thing along. All right, you finished? Are you?
No, I'm done. I'm good. We can.
Okay,
we
Mr.
can
Swears.
move forward with discussion.
Mr. Swift.
All right, so this would be to hire a professional to package a RFP? Is that what we're doing?
Mr. Werman?
Schweers, so I would envision two components here, and there's the assisting in drafting that RFP, and that certainly, I think, goes to your point. There's also the evaluation component. And so, this was sort of generated out of some discussions I'd had with our staff, and there is a concern that if we put out, just sort of an RFP that vaguely refers to affordable or workforce housing or something, much along the lines of what we were going to do with the deed restriction, that does not provide a great deal of clarity, and you'll potentially put yourself in a position where responses to that are going to be sort of all over the place and very difficult to evaluate amongst each other. So that's part of why we would focus in on that, and that would be helping in drafting an RFP that avoids that problem. The other part of your question, though, is that it would be a little bit more than just drafting the RFP. I think that the reference to evaluate would encapsulate some sort of professional assessment of whether this framework is feasible, whether this framework needs to be tweaked, and whether, frankly, anything needs to be added to it in their professional opinion. So that is how I would envision it. I would certainly trust staff to execute that as appropriate, but I think it is that and some more, Mr. Schweers, is that they would certainly draft the RFP, but also give feedback thereon.
I think for my liking, this is too dense with affordable housing. I've always said we need to spread out affordable housing. If the proposal was to require 10% affordable housing, I would certainly be interested, but at 2/3 affordable housing, I just think that's too dense. I think it needs to be spread across the urban areas a lot more thinly than that. And I think the property we're talking about has extraordinary value, and I think we have a responsibility to make sure we recognize that value. Affordable housing is important, no question, but the money for affordable housing is important as well. And I think we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot on this one if we decide this is where we're going to do a great deal of affordable housing. I realize a lot of the long-term owners in that area, in those neighborhoods, are being displaced by the influx of the demand for their property. You know, they're being paid, but they are being displaced, and I realize that. I'm not so sure that those same folks want to live in a 8-story building. You know, the neighborhood, nobody likes to lose their neighborhood. I totally agree with that, and I sympathize with that. But I don't think it means they want to live in a newly built building. I mean, that's not the neighborhood. So I think we're trying to solve something, but I don't agree with the way we're solving it. I mean, it is a tragedy what's happening to some of those neighborhoods, no question. I don't think this solves that, and I don't think this is financially responsible either. So I'll vote no to what's proposed.
All right, Mr. Wellman, you don't have to respond to that. That's, if you don't want to.
One thing. Just, and maybe this will help frame the discussion moving forward for folks, because I know I referred to area median income. That's sort of a jargony phrase. Just to be clear, when we say 60% of area median income, I think, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's about $34,000 a year for a person who would make about $34,000 a year. When we say 100, that's a person who would make about $56,000 a year. So we talk a lot, not just about folks in the neighborhood, but we talk about firefighters, we talk about nurses, we talk about teachers. I very much think that this is not affordable in the sense that that term is often used to refer to Section 8 and those sorts of things. I think that really what this is saying, and 100% of AMI is literally the median income of the area. It's saying this is a very broad swath and, in my view, reflective of the county in general and not necessarily some sort of economic subsection thereof. So, that's sort of in response to Mr. Schweer's concerns, and we can all set those levels as we please. But I think it also might help framing some of the discussion moving forward.
Okay, I saw Ms. Honeycutt hand up, and who else down this side while we down this side? Reverend Middleton and Mr. Darby, you got anything to say?
Not now, no, sir.
All right, so I'm gonna go to Ms. Honeycutt, Reverend Middleton, then I'll come to my left. So I got, one will be cross-eyed. All right, so Ms. Honeycutt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to commend Mr. Werman. I know you've worked very hard on this. I know it's a huge priority. You've waited a couple years now here on council to really move this ball forward. And I don't necessarily completely disagree with this approach because it comes back to council.
Right.
So we're getting an idea, and this is where I think there's a lot of value in this exercise, which is none of us up here are developers, and we shouldn't be in the business of developing. And this is a parcel with extraordinary value. And I think all of us up here want to do something we can be proud of with this parcel. And so I'd love to know what the value is of this parcel if it's built out at its highest and best use, and then apply that framework to see how it affects the market value, only so that we better understand what we are giving up in exchange for what we are getting. Because 260% AMI units doesn't really put a whole lot of dent in the issue we have across the county. And so I just want to make sure to be a good steward of the taxpayer resource and asset that's at play here, that we are looking at all of those. And our staff, I think, even brought that to our attention. There's a financial calculation that we need to do here, and I don't want to go about this blindly. But I think bringing in an expert who understands urban planning and what can be done and provide and assist us with a vision for what could be here and do something really exceptional, I think it's a step in the right direction. So thank you.
All right, Reverend Middleton.
I certainly just wanted to humanize the issue. I'm from that area, grew up, born, raised on the east side of Charleston, still have family members who live over there and are under this pressure of selling based on all of the gentrification that's happening in real time over on the east side of Charleston. I think the issue becomes product. And when we look at this particular parcel of land, it provides at least the opportunity for there to be additional units available for individuals who had a desire to live in that area in downtown Charleston. I do really feel that when we look at the value, we also have to value human beings who, as Mr. Werman pointed out, may be teachers and firefighters and pastors and other individuals. My church is literally downtown Charleston. We are currently worshiping on the east side because our church is under construction. So I'm actually pastoring in that community. And so, you know, to live in the community that you work in is something that we have all been used to. And certainly for having individuals having to drive in, no option, no choice because of affordability, whatever that term means, I think the value of the human beings who are paying taxes in this county also become a value added as we, you know, assess the overall equation.
Okay.
Mr. Pryor, thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
You ready to
said
say
you're looking to
something?
your right, sir. I'm still
Yeah,
right.
but you
What school
said you
go
didn't.
to, sir?
Okay, I'm gonna go to you
sorry,
now.
thank
Go
you,
ahead.
sir. You
Go
went to
ahead.
what school, sir? Oh, this is
Go
your
ahead.
right, sir. Oh, thank you. I would concur with Mr. Swears in terms of scattered sites if it were indeed low-income homes. Low-income homes is not synonymous with affordable housing. The two just don't mix. I would also like to say that the value of property should never exceed the value of people. We have teachers, nurses, police officers, firemen. And I'm speaking from personal experience here, and not to appear to be arrogant, but last school year, I had to house 2 teachers. Principal, I had to house 2 teachers because they couldn't find any place to live. And I needed a Spanish teacher because my kids need to go to college. And if I didn't have those 2 Spanish teachers, my kids would have taken Spanish to be accepted to college. That's how bad these things are. So I don't think we need to put the value of the land, whether it's millions and millions or not, on the needs of people. I think we need to look at something substantive, particularly when folks are being forced out, and when we have to have these professionals. And we're talking police officers, we're talking firemen, we're talking nurses. This is the folks that we are trying to procure to come here. So again, it's not low-income housing. I know you're not against it. I'm not against it. But for scattered sites, yes, sir. But affordable housing, we think that everybody will be on the same field. That's all.
And don't forget the restaurant workers too.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Well, they make as much as teachers anyhow, so
Mr. Moody.
Mr. Pryor, and I'll echo, thank you, Mr. Werman. I know you're passionate. I appreciate you reaching out about this. I did have a question for maybe you or Ms. Ham, because the committee recommendation, I think, was for an easement. Does this motion drop that language?
He's amending it to take it out. That's his motion, takes it out.
Okay, that's good.
He
Okay.
did state that right at the
Oh, I'm
beginning
sorry, I
of
missed
his
that.
motion.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that. Then good, that's good. I think I'm okay with this. I would differ only, Mr. Darby, in that I echo Ms. Honeycutt's comments in that we may or may not make a decision down there, but I think it's the responsibility of this council to know what we are giving up. I think the first meeting Mr. Davis came to, we had him under some heavy fire his first meeting here, and I think one of the first things he said was, there's calculations to be made, or something like that. We know that the property is probably north of 30 million, and if we agree that this is what we want to do, we've got to know, as stewards of the county funding, what we're giving up. And if we decide to give it up, then at least we've made an educated decision.
yes, sir.
So I think it's responsible for us to know, as Ms. Honeycutt said, the highest and best use, what, if we go this way, what it is, what that does to the value of the property, and thereby what we're giving up. Thank you, Mr. Pryor.
All right, Mr. Sass?
Thank you, Mr. Pryor. Ms. Honeycutt, I agree with you about the highest and best use and the value. This is a very valuable property today.
And one question I do have that we haven't addressed is, are we talking about one parcel or both parcels?
I believe well, I guess what that would ultimately go down to is what was the initial motion out of Finance Committee, which I believe was both parcels.
Yes.
So I'm talking about both parcels as well. At least that's my understanding of what I'm doing, so.
So we're talking about both parcels. I think it's a good idea to get an idea of what the highest and best use is. I do agree with Mr. Schweers, though. I think that if you bunch up too much, even affordable housing in one location, I think you need a mixture. I think we need a mixture. I don't know, Mr. Davis, and here we are, we're up here making these decisions, and we're gonna get a consultant or somebody to write up an RFP for us. And I'd kind of like to know what our people think is the best to be done with this property, because I don't think I've heard that. I don't think I've heard what Mr. Davis or you think is the best thing that could be done with that property. And y'all are living that property every day. Y'all know more about it than any of us up here. So I'd kind of like to know what y'all think.
Mr. Sass, I think after this RFP is developed, then we'll all find out, what the professional things too. I mean, I don't want to put staff in that spot where it's become political, where this person is on the phone and that person is on the phone. So I think an independent person that comes in and give us an assessment is the way to go. And when you said, Mr. Swears, or you said bunch all together, well, we don't have a problem with all the high rises downtown now. They all bunched up together. Nobody is saying anything about them being bunched up together, because people can afford it and live in it. So I think it's a little, I wouldn't say disingenuous, but I think it's a little insensitive to say, well, we don't want to put a bunch of people with affordable housing, or however we term it, versus if you ride down East Bay Street right now, it's awful. They're building them so close to the road, you take your eye off the road, you're gonna run into them.
They are, and most of those properties have 10 or maybe 20% component.
I understand, but if you're building a 300, then you only got 30, what does is it good for 30, for all these people we trying to help? So I think what we trying to establish is, yes, we want more of these people to be able to live downtown where they work, instead of driving out. I give you a perfect example. My daughter lives in Somerville because she can't afford to live down there because of the rent and the prices, but she drive in every day. And so those are the things we want to do. It'd be nice if a restaurant person, a firefighter, a teacher, a nurse or whatever, be it even if somebody who can afford it, if they can live where they work. So that's why I think this is a great idea. Mr. Wilman is going, and that's why I supported it when you asked about it. And I think we ought to just wait, because I don't want to put staff in the middle. I think staff has been pulled in different directions too long.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Pryor?
Well, I want to sit on the left side. Let me go to Ms. Johnson, and then I'll come back down to y'all, because I want to get everybody out first. Ms. Johnson?
Okay, thank you, sir. All right. Can y'all hear me now? Okay. I do have a question for Ms. Durant, because I need my memory refreshed here. How many units are we trying to build by 2030? Do you recall?
In the last assessment that was done through 2020, I believe it was 26,000, Ms. Johnson. I will have to go back and check
Okay.
that. You are testing
Okay.
my memory also, but
All
I
right.
believe overall.
Okay, because I'm just thinking that.
And not just build, in total effect, which could include rehab.
We have an amount for a building.
Verify that
Yes.
for you.
And so, and me thinking about how many new units we want to build, and where can we build them? Where do we have the zoning to build them? And we can only talk about Charleston County. That's the only control that we have as far as building units. The city has their own jurisdiction in North Charleston, et cetera. And I just don't see a lot of land with the correct zoning for us to build out a lot of different units. It's a limited amount of places we can do that. And this opportunity for us to increase the build out of new units at this Morrison Drive location, I think we should get the most for our bucks out of that, because there's just not a lot of places with the right zoning to do this. Land is not being grown, and it's decreasing more and more. The city can't expand but so much. They are on Johns Island, James Island. North Charleston, same thing. It's not a lot of land. So if we can get many units, like Mr. Webman is talking about right here, possibly, was it 300?
Ms. Johnson,
Then-
so the framework I'd put out there, I had talked with some folks about a unit total. I did not include that in it because basically I think this is partly based on what staff is sort of suggesting, is that doesn't necessarily need to be specified. If a professional comes in and says that they want to specify it somehow, happy to hear that. But I think the financial incentives are going to be for someone to probably try and put a substantial amount of units there if you kind of look at the area. And so I don't know that we need to, I am trying to avoid hemming folks in to some sort of specific thing
Number,
to the
okay.
extent possible, while at the same time balancing, putting forth a vision. And, you know, I know that, you know, I think we can certainly.
You answered my question. Thank
Gotcha.
you. The main thing is, I just think that we have an opportunity to put as many housing units here as possible because there's limited other places that we can use to increase the new housing. And so I certainly am going to support this.
All right, Mr. Webman, then I'm going to Mr. Darby and Reverend Middleton, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
Thank you, Chairman Pryor. You know, I have talked with staff a fair amount about this, and, you know, I don't want to put them in a bad position, but honestly, Chairman Pryor, if they'd, you know, like to offer any thoughts on this, I certainly want them to have the opportunity to do so. Mr. Ant, do you have any thoughts you'd like to add today?
I'm happy to say that staff has discussed with council the concept of a master planner for purposes of helping us quantify an outcome that we can bring back to you all. This will not be the development, this will be the plan that would then come back to you all, hopefully in tandem with the comprehensive affordable housing plan that we also have that will be coming back to you all. So we're comfortable with working through this RFP for a master planner.
Okay, now, Mr. Darby.
I just want to follow up by saying with Mr. Swears, because Mr. Swears is a very intelligent man, and if there was an opportunity for mixed use in terms of scattered housing, affordable housing, that would be the ideal thing to go. But I guess, Mr. Spears, do we have enough land to even suggest if we were to have mixed uses, sir? Is there enough land on the peninsula to do this?
I'm not suggesting that we do this many units and do it in single-family housing, if that's what you're asking. I'm not suggesting that.
I mean, if you were to trade off, there were fewer housing, whatnot. I mean, and if we could get more, is there other areas
I'm
that we
just
could?
suggesting that when new development occurs, that we continue doing what the municipalities have been doing and requiring a certain percentage of affordable housing. And that typically is in the 10% range. And I think that blends better than a high concentration. I think a high concentration is just not as appealing.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Middleton.
I certainly also wanted to add context when you say 10 to 20%. I heard that mentioned a couple of times of affordable housing in some of these newer constructions that we see on Morrison Drive, East Bay, some of whom the lease and or rent prices are upward in the thousands of dollars, 3,000. And I was just going on my phone to some of them just to see, well, what would that 10 to 20% lower sort of pricing be? And many of them you have to call for the pricing. And so in most cases, even as it relates to the floor of that 10 to 20% affordability, it's still not affordable for the group that we're talking about today. And so we have to always ask affordable for whom, because even the 10 to 20% could still be a $3,000 price tag. And that's affordable based on the rest of the high rises or lease spaces are worth $6,000 or something of that nature.
Okay, Ms. Honeycutt.
And just So I'm clear, I know we're only talking about the residential component, but this does not preclude mixed use. We can anticipate that an urban planner might suggest other uses other than just residential in this area.
Correct, Ms. Honeycutt. In fact, it actually sort of mandates mixed use a little bit because part of the framework was to include commercial use on at least the ground floor.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion has been duly seconded and made. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Staff, when y'all get it done, let's get it as fast as we can and get it back to council. I don't want to be sitting on this another 6 months. Okay? So you know, every Wednesday I'm gonna ask where we at. And I expect an answer. Okay. Thank you so much. All right, so now that concludes our county council meeting. We're now going to go into our finance committee meeting. Item number 1 is approval of minutes of March 1st, 10th, and the 15th. Moved and seconded. Any discussion, deletions, or addition? And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Let me stop right for a minute here before I forget. I had asked the mayor of Lincolnville to come and show us a photo of what they have done with the money that we allotted them. So Ms. Worsler, if you would just walk it down and let everybody see, and if the mayor wanted to say something, because I don't want to hold them here all night through our meeting, but I just wanted y'all to see that, well, I think it was $150,000 that they requested. It was well spent, and they're doing some more beautification in the park.
150 did that?
You look like one of them ladies with the fight. Round 2. But Mayor, thank you, Christian. The mayor, if you want to say a few words, I don't want to hold you.
Dickerson, I'm the newly elected mayor of town of Lincolnville. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your contribution to the town of Lincolnville for our park and recreation. The money is being well spent. We haven't even spent all of it yet for what you see there. We're in the process of doing our playground. The part that we have already done was a new basketball court and tennis court, which we actually have 4 courts in 2. We got pickleball and tennis, and we got volleyball and basketball all in 1 court to maximize the use. Again, I want to thank you guys for all that you've done. We're in the process of trying to get money to finish our 2 to 12 area, which will be our playground. And we're on the way now trying to negotiate and trying to get the best bid possible to try to finish that with the money we got. We want to thank the chief, our fire department's here, Bobby, we have Mr. Roberts and Mr. Ted, along with our Councilman Betty Wellen and Mr. Aiken is also with me. Another need that came about that I submitted a package to Mrs. Johnson. We in dire need of a new fire truck. The fire truck we had for over 25 years has been in the shop. We recently got it out. And we purchased a ladder truck which cannot go into the places we need for fire. And we looked at another truck, a vendor out of Myrtle Beach, for $239,000, which will fit the housing of where we have the other 2 trucks are now. If we was able to get that truck, we wouldn't have to do an addition to the fire station. It would take us another, I guess, 10 to 12 years down the road. Something that's got warranty, something that we can depend on when there's a fire. So I'm here pleading with the council, after looking with the package I submitted, if you could consider that as something that you could help the town of Lincolnville out with. I would greatly appreciate any help that you could give the town of Lincolnville. Like I say, I'm new here. I've been on council for 12 years. I've been the municipal court judge there for 16 years. But this shoe that I'm fitting right now is different from all the others. So any help that you could give the town of Lincolnville financially, after looking over the package that you presently have, will be greatly appreciated.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mayor Dickinson.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. And I see we have council members Waring and Shealy from the city of Charleston here. They have for a item that's on the agenda. So, gentlemen, just want to say thank you for coming. Wish you the best. All right. So, item number 2 is resolutions A, B, and C. What is the pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Item 3A through J, you want to take one at a time, or you want to take?
Objection, I would have moved to approve items A through J.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Reverend Middleton. Mr. Swears.
Just one question on 3H. I think that's the MacArthur Foundation, is that correct? We have received a number of grants from them, always very generous of them. Typically, they come with a hook, though. And does this one come with a hook? Once we take this money, we use this money, does it require us to spend money at the end?
Mr. Swears, this is a planning grant solely. There is not a required commitment. History has taught us that if we do this well, there is a possibility we will receive additional funds for implementation. The grant agreement would be presented to us, but currently there are no obligations for the county to sustain anything. This really, we are one of 4 in the nation that were selected for this. Wow. And in order to tie this together with all of our other funding, it gives us an opportunity to intervene on the homelessness and the recidivism at the jail due to lack of adequate housing.
It sounds like we were very competitive on this and we succeeded, so that's wonderful. I just want to make sure this acceptance of this grant doesn't mean we're also committing to, down the road, a substantial amount of county money.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Mr. Sass.
One question, Mr. Chairman, thank you. It concerns the set-aside grants. And I know that we do this regularly, but I just want to make sure that I understand this. This is one of these was a set-aside grant for site preparation and preparing a site for one of these buildings to be built. And so I imagine that means that the money is actually here in Charleston County with the economic development. And so when the particular foundation and site work is done, we send it over to whoever's supposed to get it, who did the work. My question is we're just responsible for paying the money. We're holding the money until the work gets done, but somebody else is verifying that it was all done properly. Is that correct?
Steve.
Dykes?
Yes, that is correct. And basically the role we play is that we give reimbursement once the documents and the work is verified. We give reimbursement, and then we file to be backfilled from the South Carolina Commerce Department.
Okay. But so we're not responsible for saying it's done right. We're told just to go ahead and pay it.
That's right. We just get the documents verifying that.
Well, that's what I thought. I just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Back to item H, I just wanted to mention this because I see Ms. Stanford in the back of the room. This was the grant that the CJCC worked with, or
They were a partner with us, yes.
So I just wanted to Mr. Schweers. The CJCC was born out of a MacArthur grant, and we have brought that team over under our Public Safety Directorate, and that team is now getting more funding. So that does eventually pay for itself sometimes. So just congratulations to that team. I was at a meeting with Ms. Stanford presenting when she had to run off to meet with these folks. So congratulations, team. Good job.
All right, anybody else? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. I'm gonna go to Boards and Commission. Mr. Swears, you had asked to be recognized.
I'll move for approval on A through D.
Second.
B, okay, it's been moved.
Actually, there are just enough appointments for the positions available.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, ayes have it. Mr.
Well,
Swears.
4E, I would like to move for Campbell, Kenny, and Von Dolan, and that we close nominations. I think that leaves one spot open, but that we re-advertise for an additional opening.
Okay, is there a second to Mr. Swears' motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion. Saying none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Item 5, urban entitlement funding, FY 22-23.
For approval.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion?
Just to thank the committee that handles that work. It's very detailed and well thought out, and I appreciate that. Every year they do a nice job.
All right. Mr. Swears?
I would like to echo that. When I first got on council, it was not done this way, and it's very systematic now. I look at these things, and I have a lot of confidence that we're doing the best things with the best amount of money. And that I don't feel like that was always the case, but I do have a lot of confidence in these programs now.
All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Item 6, A through C.
Second.
Seconded by Reverend Middleton. Any discussion? Mr. Sass?
I had a question. I was looking through the procurement ordinance, and I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody about it, but I was curious about, there's a number 7, amend section 2-187, sole source procurement, non-competitive procurement, increase the threshold amount required to obtain county council approval from $250,000 to $1 million, from $250,000 to $1 million. That seemed like a really large increase to me, and I just kind of wanted to ask about it and find out.
Talbot?
Thank you, Mr. Sass. The reason why we asked for that increase from 250 to 1 million, it's because of the price increase in a lot of the products and services that we have. And in a lot of cases, just like when we when we expanded at the detention center, the security system, it helps us to move the process along much faster.
Okay.
And in some cases where we bought fire trucks for the Allendale Fire Department, we had to move on them very quickly, and if we, it helps us to get what we need in a faster way because of the price of goods and services. In a lot of cases, when we do buy fire trucks, especially for our fire departments, they're used, and if we don't move quickly, we lose it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
There is one item that does require your attention, and that is the last one in there, which is number 18, which is a local preference option.
Yeah, it should.
Our
Local
department
preference.
requests that be omitted, that we delete it. It does restrict competition, and we want to increase competition because it just, and also whenever it is enacted, it sometimes causes problems with the pricing when a firm has to reduce the price to meet a local price. Subcontractors have to reduce their prices, which will cause them a lot of problems. We believe this local preference option does not serve any purpose. We've only used it 3 times in the past 5 years, and we'd be better served if it was just completely omitted from the procurement ordinance.
Understand what he's asking for?
I think,
Yes, sir.
is that where I've seen some of these bids before, and then somebody will go back and they'll get a last look because they're a local guy and they're a local firm and they can reduce it if they want?
Yes,
Claim
sir.
that. Is that where they're, okay.
Yes.
And I had seen that too, Mr. Sass, about that, but my experience has been with different administrators, if they're going to spend that kind of money, they'll usually call around and make sure they've got the support of council before they go do
I'll
something.
send a blue sheet
Go do
out.
something crazy, so I'm okay with this. Thank
All
you.
right, and what we can do, Mr. Talbot, is monitor this, where you're taking out the local preference. And if it looks like we need to put it back, you can always come back, but I agree with you. You only used it 3 times in the last 5 years, let's make a change. Ms.
Mr.
Honeycutt?
Talbot, didn't this actually affect the contractor we used on the detention center?
Yes, and
We ended up reversing because of this problem.
Yes, ma'am. You're
Thank
correct.
you.
All right, so all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Item 7, A and B. 7A is the West Ashley Bike Crossing eminent domain. What is the pleasure?
Approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second discussion.
One question. Did I read correct? This is, the amount of property we're talking about is .0, I think .002 acres?
99 square feet?
100 square feet.
99 square feet is a site plan. Yeah.
All
That's a typo.
All in favor, signify, Mr. Moody.
Say, this is a good collaborative project. It was in Mr. Pryor's district, I guess now Mr. Middleton district, but it's going to help improve that intersection at Sycamore and 61 where the bikeway crosses St. Andrews Boulevard. That's all tied in to help people get up to Sycamore, across, and back to the bikeway safely. So I support it, and it's been a good collaborative issue.
And let me ask this question, because this is a burning question, maybe legal if you don't know it. So I know we changed districts, but until we actually have an official election, I think it's still in, the old council member's district.
Then it's in your district prior.
No, but I'm just saying, because I don't want anybody to think that, I serve in this place or that place because it changed, or you serving, until it's officially done in November.
It's Ashley, Mr. Pryor.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure, all right. 'Cause I don't want people calling me saying, you my new council member, and I, not yet, okay?
Thank you for that clarification.
Now,
A lot of people didn't know that.
yeah,
so.
on a serious note, a lot of people
Okay.
didn't know, but it doesn't take effect until after the November election. Okay, anybody else? All in favor of 7A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. 7B, Pinckney Street Drainage Project.
Move for approval.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Sass. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Item 8 is the 8A. Lake Dar,
Move for approval.
Second.
I don't even have to say the word yet, okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
A lot of good things to say tonight. I'll thank council
Yeah.
members Waring and Shealy tonight. This was a really collaborative effort. Ms. Ham was involved early on as well, and we co-wrote a letter with corporate counsel to the South Carolina DOR. The plan was to use half-cent sales tax money, and they surprisingly wrote back and said no. And so Mr. Shealy and Mr. Waring both really took the bull by the horns to get the city to come up and pony up half the money. It just didn't make sense to not fix this while we were tearing up Lynn McConnell Parkway. So this is a good collaborative effort, and I appreciate the support.
I did, when I got the call, I talked to Reverend Milton, this is in his district, and he concurred that he would be satisfied. So Reverend, you good with this? All right, so gentlemen, while y'all out there, I had a conversation with y'all mayor on Monday, I think it was? Yeah, Monday, and told him, so y'all need to write us a check for $1.3 million, and then we'll take care of everything since we already got, the contracts and all, so that way they won't have, different people. So it's our project, y'all just write us a check for $1.3 million. So he agreed. So who's in charge of finance? All right, get it to it, and it's just our finance director. But now, on a serious note, I told him I thought it would be easier to do it that way versus having y'all have somebody out there watching the back and forth. And so since it's the county, we appreciate it, and it's good that we ought to work together because it's all taxpayers' dollars, we represent people in the same area. Thank you. Okay, no, thank y'all for working together. We really appreciate it. Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, ayes have it. That concludes, no, we got an executive session for legal advice. Ms. Ham, I'll turn it over to you.
So an executive session is necessary tonight for discussion of some litigation matters. No action is required by council.
And also, too, when we go in there, I want to talk about how do I describe it, ma'am? Because more of a legal matter concerning an elected official. Okay? I'm gonna phrase it like that.
So I would suggest, just for purposes of how the agenda was published, that you make a motion to add that to the executive session topics and allow council to vote on it.
All right, is there a motion to add that? All right, second by Ms. Honeycutt. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, none opposed. And so we are going to adjourn to executive session. Staff, y'all can go home if you're not needed. If Mr. Tootin say anything, call me in the morning. All right. The lines were drawn, and after third reading, those districts become yours. So I want everybody to know that the reverse statement that I said, that it don't happen until November, it actually happened after third reading. So Lincolnville, I'm your new rep. Meeting adjourned.